Welcome, Gunrunner.
There's no doubt that when it comes to my amazing exclusive series, I definitely enjoy covering the more obscure platforms rather than the massively successful ones. There are several reasons for this. Firstly, because I get to show off a lot of games that people might not have otherwise known about. Secondly, because I get to cover a system that doesn't get much love. And lastly, because it's much easier to get my selection down to 10 when there are less games to choose from. But with this system we have a quite unique situation, because the PC Engine was hugely popular in its homeland of Japan and actually boasts a library of over 700 games. But was very much and also ran in North America under the TurboGrafx 16 moniker and never got a proper release in Europe or the rest of the Western world either. This means that whilst I did have a huge selection of titles to choose from when making this video, a lot of these are going to be virtually unknown to anybody who hasn't owned a variation of the PC Engine over the years. I was lucky enough to have a friend with an import PC Engine as a teenager, and in the present day a PAL version of the TurboGrafx takes pride of place in my own collection. So the system is one that's very close to my own heart.
PC エンジン512色スーパービジュアル6チャンネルリアルサウンドニューワールドを制覇する PC エンジン全開 NEC から
Everyone who owns a variation of the PC Engine knows who Bonk is, right? PC Kid, as he was sometimes known, was NEC's answer to Sonic and Mario, a cute caveman with a giant head who was originally exclusive to the PC Engine, but ended up appearing on other platforms later on. In a spin-off from the platform games, his future relative called Zonk starred in this terrific horizontally scrolling shoot-em-up. He looks just like our old buddy Bonk with his big head and cute appearance, but now comes with cool shades and extra attitude. Zonk plays a lot like any other horizontal shooter, but, a bit like Parodius, all the graphics take on the style of a platformer and look like they came straight out of a comic book. There are loads of cool power-ups, bonus items, varied attack patterns, and some huge bosses. Everything you would expect in a shooter really. This game is also really tough, but not so hard that it puts you off. In fact, it's the complete opposite, as I couldn't stop coming back for one more go. The graphics in Zonk are fantastic, and they do suffer from a little bit of sprite flicker at times, but not so much that it puts you off, and I also love the music in this title too, as it really suits the game perfectly. Zonk offers something quite different to all the other shooters on this system, even if in style alone. It's a game that everyone who owns the system should pick up. Next, that series of pinball games became synonymous with the PC Engine before translating very well to the rival Sega Mega Drive 2, and it's easy to see why. Mix traditional pinball simulation with a CD horror movie and you basically have this game. Alongside the usual flippers and bumpers are monsters that roam the table, affect the movement of the ball, and can also be destroyed for bonus points. The best, and at the time most unique feature of this game, are the various bonus stages that transport you to a whole new screen, but often require you to beat a particularly nasty alien beast in a sort of boss battle. From the gruesome graphics right down to the raging sounds, Alien Crush just oozes with class. There's only one thing that really lets the game down however, and that's the scrolling. For some reason the programmers chose to use flip screen scrolling, which is incredibly annoying as it constantly jumps from one screen to the other. Thankfully, once you get used to it, you'll find it doesn't detract too much from what is essentially a very good game. It's also good to know that they fixed this for the sequels. Audio wise, the game really excels with excellent music throughout and really good sound effects too. Despite some small issues like the lack of scrolling, Alien Crush is still a must-have title for the PC Engine and TurboGrafx. Also known as Gunhead in Japan, Blazing Lasers was actually the game that was given away free with the limited release PAL version of the TurboGrafx, and what a game it is to get for free. A vertically scrolling space shooter of the highest order, I would go as far to say that Blazing Lasers is one of the best examples of the genre ever made, along with more well-known titles like Gaiden and Truxton. It all follows a very standard formula, but does everything exceptionally well. I particularly like the power-up system where you can grab one of 5 main weapons and 5 different side weapons and then continue to upgrade them by collecting floating pink power globes. At first some weapons seem better than others, but you soon learn that different power-ups are better suited for different parts of the game, and this is something you'll need to memorise if you want to beat it. Graphically, Blazing Lasers is nothing short of superb, and just gets better and better as the game goes on. I was stunned how many sprites you get on screen here with almost no slowdown or flicker. In the sound department it's every bit as good, with easily some of the best music you'll hear on the machine. Simply put, Blazing Lasers is an essential purchase for any PC Engine or TurboGrafx owner, and without doubt my favourite game in the system's library. This is a title that's really worth owning the system to play.
Multi-body.
Released as a Doraemon game in Japan, Cratermaze is a real harkback to the arcade maze games of the early 80s like Dig Dug, Pac-Man, Bomberman and Amidar. It combines elements from all of them in different ways and is a real welcome change from all the usual arcade fodder on this system. You control a little guy in a maze who must make his way around each screen collecting all the items. Once you've grabbed them all, a key appears that you must also pick up in order to enter the exit. You're not on your own in these mazes though, there are also lots of bad guys trying to stop you. Your character has the ability to dig a hole behind him, and if you put it in the right place, the enemy will fall in and die. These enemies do regenerate though, much like Pac-Man, so you can't get complacent. As the levels get larger and more complicated, you must also use springs and teleports to get to certain areas. There are power-ups you can pick up, allow you to dig more holes, as well as some handy weapons to kill the baddies too, like yo-yos and catapults. The game is all very cute indeed, from its cartoony theme right down to the colourful graphics and whimsical music. A handy password feature also allows you to pick up the game again right where you left off. If you want something a bit different for your TurboGrafx, then look no further than this little gem. Cratermaze is a cracker. Legendary Axe seems to be held in very high regard by PC Engine and TurboGrafx fans alike, and is always one of the first to be mentioned when it comes to a list of great exclusives for the system, along with its equally worthwhile sequel. The game is clearly inspired by arcade hack and slash titles like Rygar, Rastan, and to a lesser extent Golden Axe. It follows very much the same gameplay style to those titles, combined with elements of arcade adventures and platformers too. Your muscle-bound character is also pretty much the same as Rastan and Axe Battler from Golden Axe, and a few enemies seem to be virtually identical too. The gameplay here is pretty tough, with you often having to repeat the same parts of the level over and over in order to progress, especially if you miss a jump and fall down. There are 6 levels in all to fight your way through, and they will all require plenty of patience on your part. I found the graphics in Legendary Axe to be a little bit lackluster, and they came across as a bit NES-ish. Although the animation is nice and there are some well designed sprites. The sound is very good though, with some rather nice music playing throughout the game. So Legendary Axe is not original in the slightest, but it's a faithful tribute to those other games I already mentioned, and will certainly appeal greatly to fans of those titles, as will the sequel. Every system has those hidden gems that nobody seems to talk about, but actually represent some of the best games on the system, and when it comes to PC Engine, Metal Stoker is the very first one of these that springs to mind. The undoubted quality of this game is perhaps even more surprising when you consider that it was developed and published by a company I've never heard of, in Face. In essence, Metal Stoker is a top-down shooter that is somewhat reminiscent of the Atari arcade game Vindicators. In the game, you control a tank that must move around each level, locating and then defeating all the enemy vehicles and gun placements. You can either fix the cannon of your tank in a single direction as you move, or freely rotate it, which takes a while to get the hang of, but works very well once you do. There are also power-ups that can be collected in order to improve your tank and change over to a much more powerful one. Levels scroll in all 8 directions and take place in a wide variety of different locations too. Graphically, Metal Stoker is pretty slick with great use of colour and really well defined sprites. The audio isn't half bad either, with some nice tunes and great sound effects too. Overall, Metal Stoker is one of those games that you will come back to time after time whenever you have an itchy trigger finger, or just want to play something a bit more original than all the arcade ports on the system. I will never understand why none of the home console versions of Ninja Gaiden are a conversion of the arcade game. Instead, the various coders decided to create some kind of generic platform-based game using the same name. Tecmo's original Ninja Gaiden coin-op, known as Shadow Warriors in Europe, was a superb scrolling beat-em-up starring a backflipping ninja called Ryo Hayabusa, who would later go on to star in the Dead or Alive games. The NES version, which was in development at the same time, still features the same character, but instead of an all-action scrolling beat-em-up, we've got a fast-action platformer with some fighting elements added in. This later PC Engine interpretation follows that same concept, but isn't a straight port, remaining unique and exclusive to the system, much like the alternative Master System and Game Gear conversions in fact. All you do is run around each level jumping on platforms, taking out enemies and collecting the items. You start with a simple sword, and this can be upgraded by collecting the handy power-ups as you go. At the end of each level you have to face a boss, and this is where most of the actual fighting takes place. Obvious comparisons will be made with the aforementioned NES version, but PC Engine Ninja Gaiden features much nicer visuals, a cracking soundtrack, and isn't quite so unfair when it comes to the actual gameplay either. The PC Engine and TurboGrafx have become most revered for their excellent range of shoot-em-ups over the years, and are very much the go-to console for this type of game. But away from all the big name titles, there are more than a few gems that people are not so aware of. Psychosis is one such title, one that I'd never actually heard of until I picked it up as the sole arcade style title in a big bundle of sports games I bought off eBay. It's a strange one because as soon as you start playing it reminds you of another game, but you can't figure out quite which one. I suppose most people would compare it to R-Type. I think it's because this distinctly unoriginal shooter borrows stuff from a host of more successful horizontally scrolling shoot-em-ups. With certainly elements of games like R-Type, Thunder Force, Gradius and even Parodius here. There's a decent power-up system, nice level design and plenty of meaty bad guys to fight through. Couple that with some decent graphics and nice sound, what you have is a pretty solid game that grows on you the more you play it. Interestingly, the Japanese version, known as Paranoia, actually swaps around some of the stages and has a few minor graphical differences too. Psychosis might not be one of the system's very best shoot-em-ups, but it's certainly one to take a look at when you've tired of all the more well-known ones out there. The original Star Soldier game was a huge hit for Hudson Soft on the MSX and Nintendo NES, being widely regarded as one of the best shoot-em-ups on each system, so it's rather surprising that it took them 4 years to develop a sequel. But as you might have guessed already, this sequel is a PC Engine exclusive. Set over 8 levels of vertically scrolling shoot-em-up action, the gameplay remains very similar to the original game, but ups the ante in almost every area. Perhaps most notable of these being the range of awesome power-ups that includes lightning bolts, energy rings, homing missiles and huge balls of fire. Each level is set over a different scene, from the outer reaches of space to a volcanic landscape, and features an appropriately themed boss. You start the game with just 3 lives, but an extra ship is awarded every 100,000 points earned. Another feature of Super Star Soldier, which certainly helped the game earn such a high reputation among the media and owners alike, is the stunning visuals. Many have even described them as the best graphics of any HuCard based game out there, and I'm inclined to agree. The soundtrack here also lives up to the same high standards with plenty of awesome sound effects to accompany it. As vertically scrolling shoot-em-ups go on the PC Engine, I marginally prefer Blazing Lasers and Gaiden, but this is an excellent substitute. In Japan, street racing usually occurs on long straights in industrial areas, which are perfect for drag races, and will probably be familiar to anyone out there who's an avid viewer of the Fast and Furious film franchise. These races are known as Zero Yon or 04, as a shortening of 0 to 400 metres, the standard length of these races. This series is something of a precursor to later titles such as Initial D and Wangan Midnight, with its style of racing, auto parts tuning and anime style story mode. It also has some RPG and simulation style gameplay, which has succeeded with the Shotoku battle titles. Now that history lesson is over, I'll get down to the nitty gritty of this game. As I've already explained, 04 Champ is a digital representation of Japanese street races, so you'd expect to find a pretty amazing lineup of cars, right? Well, if you did, then you won't be disappointed, as at your selection are legendary sport grade motors such as the Nissan Skyline GTR, Toyota MR2, Subaru Impreza WRX, Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 6, Mazda RX-7 and Honda NSX. It has to be said that it just doesn't get better than that as a car roster goes for an early 90s racing game. Graphically, 04 Champ is excellent, with well-defined cars, and it excels even further in the soundscapes with some of the best music I've heard in a HuCard game. This is a real hidden gem in the PC Engine library.
Are you one of us? 16-bit graphics, or one of them, 8-bit? Us. CD game sound. Them, not. Us. Them. Us. Turbo Express Portable. Us. Buy TurboGrafx 16 now and get one of 38 selected games free.
And that rounds up my look at 10 amazing exclusives for the PC Engine and TurboGrafx. Can you think of any other HuCard based exclusives for the NEC console that should have made the list? Or do you think some of these games were unworthy of inclusion? I always love to hear the thoughts and views of my audience, so please get typing in that comment section. Before I go though, I must thank all of my loyal patrons who continue to support my channel and make videos like this possible. However, I must give special thanks to the following patrons in particular for their much appreciated pledges: Mitchell Valentino, Neptune, Seth A. Robinson, Carl Olsen, Dos Gamerman, Tiago Piero dos Santos Silva, John Byrne and Electron Star Collapse. If you also want to help support all my creative endeavours, including this YouTube channel, then please go and check out my Patreon right now, where you can get access to a host of extra content including downloads, exclusive videos, creative insights and much more besides. I've been the Laird, I thank you for watching and I'll see you all again for another video very soon.